Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Follow the Scanner. Okay, boss. Background. I used to work at a car manufacturer whose name rhymes with Wanda. My job was to pick up trains of carts full of parts from the warehouse with a motorized cart puller, take them to a section the assembly line, and take the empty carts back to the warehouse to be refilled. There were about 20 of us doing this job, all on a different route. The way the factory was set up created a narrow path that only a single train could fit through at a time. This bottleneck was shared by 3 routes, which made it nearly impossible to complete Route X, the furthest, in a timely manner. We had scanners that told us exactly which train of carts to pick up next and which empty carts to collect. The story. As you may have gathered by now, Route X was not popular with us worker bees. If you follow the scanner, you would regularly fall behind while you waited for the bottleneck to clear. The solution us worker bees came up with. We combined a couple of small trains to reduce the number of trips we needed to make, saving us time and allowing us to keep up with the deliveries. All was good until management clued into what we were doing. We were told that the scanner tells you what to do. We don't pay you to think, follow the scanner. I happened to be assigned Route X right after we got chewed out, so I thought, okay, I'll follow the damn scanner. I watched as the amount of reserve parts at the line dwindled. Did I care? Nope, I was following my scanner. By the time management noticed, my route was down to less than 5 reserve parts at the line. These are used at a rate of 1/minute. Did I care? No. I was still happily following my scanner. It took 3 managers helping out to get Route X back up to an acceptable state by the end of the shift. And when they asked me what went wrong, I said, I don't know, boss, I was just following my scanner. FOD. The company investigated the layout of their routes and did some reorganization to avoid the bottleneck. Took a couple months, but Route X was finally fixed. Next one is titled, Don't Touch the iPad. You got it. Until recently, I worked at a fine dining restaurant. I was there for 3.5 years, and the majority of that time I was a buzzer. By the time I left, I was the most tenured person in the front of house by a fair margin, including managers, which we burned through ridiculously quickly. And everyone I directly worked with had good things to say about my work ethic and how I was with the guests. I could be abrasive as a person, but if I was in your section, you'd have a smooth night, professionally. Some background. Our restaurant was 90% reservation. One wasn't required, but if you wanted a table at a certain time, you made one. On occasion, we'd have walk-ins or someone wouldn't show up to their reservation, but the number of covers, people, you walk into was usually pretty spot on to what you'd end up doing. Most of them were for 2, but we'd also take larger tables. If the night was all 2 tops, we wouldn't set up for anything else, and anything bigger than a 4 top we'd have to push tables together. Not an issue, but a little time consuming to make sure every server was cool with the placement. Setup took between 2 and 3 hours, depending on how busy we were. Lastly, you'd figure out how busy we were from an iPad the host used, or that's how I did it. One winter, we had a shake-up. We had a new manager from our corporate parent take an open spot for a short-term contract. We'll call him Dave. And he quickly became one of my favorite managers. He was pretty no-nonsense and respected that he didn't know how our restaurant ran. Thus, he was open to talking through our reasoning and basically expected that we were good at what we did unless we proved otherwise. Our hosts were mostly young women or old girls, like still in / just out of high school. In several instances, it was a first job ever, because the compensation was, and still is, pretty crappy. You get what you pay for, and many of them didn't have the refinement one would expect when paying over $100 a head before tax, tip, and alcohol. One, who we'll call K, was pretty protective of the iPad, at least when it came to me. When I came in, I would breeze up to the host stand, look at the numbers for a minute, then go set up. She apparently brought up that I would do this for no reason to Dave and to his boss, who told Dave to get me to knock it off so HR wouldn't have to mediate. That would have looked bad for basically everyone. She never got upset when anyone else looked at the spread of tables, but I digress. He asked why I was touching the iPad. I responded that I was looking at the numbers, the big tops, special requests for tables, stuff like that. He asked why I wouldn't wait until per shift for that. I told him that was 15 minutes before service. I might be able to change things in time if that happened, but I'd miss the rest of pre-shift, and if I had to put together tables, the restaurant would be at least partially not set. He asked specifically what I needed, and I told him a breakdown of the tables by time is what I looked at. He said he'd make sure I had one when I came in and told me not to touch the iPad again. Cool, works for me. The next day, I come in and it's waiting for me. Handwritten, because the app we use doesn't play well with printers. The day after, I asked him for it, and he said he had forgotten. He'd get it to me. Took him half an hour to write it out and double-check that he didn't miss anything. The malicious compliance here is twofold. At some point between day 2 and 3, Dave realizes that he has other stuff to do rather than write out the spread of tables every day. He's been asked to not let me touch the iPad, and I've told him I won't. So he talks to Kay and tells her she needs to write it out, and it needs to be done by the time I get in, about half an hour after she does. She, like Dave, realizes it's a lot of work for something I'll look at for 30 seconds and asks him to let me look at the iPad again. Sorry, no can do, we've gotten complaints, and we don't want HR to get involved. Kay comes to me and offers me the iPad when I get in. Sorry, I've been given direct order. I'll take the spread when you're done writing it up though. I'd planned on relenting after a week, but the servers ended up loving seeing what was coming in when, and it became a staple of the host's job from then on. Kay ended up quitting after getting into it with another manager, but her contribution of a handwritten spread by the host is still going strong, as far as I know. Next one is titled, "Oh, you want me to follow your route sheet to the letter?" I work pest control. I do Centricon, checking our termite monitors. There have been several houses that have the monitors covered by tarp then dirt and a lot of mulch. I've never scheduled enough time to do the job how it needs to be done. I give my concerns and I'm told it needs to be done regardless of the conditions of the house. I explained several times that I would need most of my day to successfully find every monitor, but it's just ignored. So a trouble house comes up again, I ignore giving my concerns about the house. I go and spend hours to make sure I've located and checked every station. I get a call from my office that I spent too much time at one place. I explained that they want to ignore me about the issue, and told them they told me to stay until it's done regardless of the conditions. I explained to the customer, who I do have a good relationship with. Customer calls and tells them he has a lot covering the monitors and will cancel his account if not everything is found. Office finally shuts up about times and told me to take my time and not worry about other stops until a job is done. Next one is titled, "Want me to slow down?" In my neighborhood I have some neighbors with kids, of which they are very protective of, which is fine. What is not fine is teenagers speeding through the cul-de-sac endangering the kids. I am one of the 3 teenagers in the cul-de-sac, and I drive much more cautiously than the others, especially after I was warned about it once, and I will admit I sometimes go a bit too fast, but I slowed down after the warning because I want good relations with the neighbors. However, the other 2 teenagers did not get the warning. The neighbors still hear the others coming through and blame it on me. Today 4 of them got together and cornered my mom in our yard and started telling her off about my driving. I don't have a problem with them getting together or telling us kids off about it. Even if they were cornering me, I wouldn't mind. My problem is they took it out on my mother. In my mind, this is not okay. If they have a problem, they can speak to me. I would be happy to oblige, but they instead got to my mom. And this is why I'm going to slow way down. Some background about my truck. It is a 24-year-old truck built for off-roading, meaning it has a very large and noisy fan to keep it cool at low speeds in the desert, and also has a very low-range gearbox. Usually, this type of gearbox is only turned to such a low range on very difficult terrain because the point is it is to go very slow, less than 10 mph usually. In my mind, this is the perfect way to slow down for the neighbors. I can make sure my truck goes plenty slow for their kids. Unfortunately, this will cause the fan to be very loud. But hey, anything to keep the kids safe. Normally, I come in at about 5 mph, but now I can go 1.5 mph, taking me about 50 seconds to park while the fan blows away like a jetliner. Usually I come home at 9:30 to 10 p.m., so sorry other neighbors about the noise. Win-win for everyone, right? Next one is titled, "One balloon per person you say. Alrighty then, I choose this one." This happened a couple of years back, on my coworker's birthday. I ran out that morning to the party store to grab a small balloon bouquet. Wasn't going for anything fancy, just 1-miler birthday balloon with 2 or 3 solid colored latex balloons to match, a fairly standard arrangement. It was a little after 10 a.m., The store had just opened, and I was the only customer in there. I walked up to the counter to order my balloons, and the woman working there asked me if I had pre-ordered. I told her I hadn't, and she informed me that she couldn't do it for me. Apparently, if I didn't pre-order, it was their store policy that they could only do one balloon per person per visit. I looked around. I'm still the only customer in the store. Now, I would totally get why this would be something the store would have to enforce if there were other people waiting, but again, there was nobody else there, and filling up 3 to 4 regular balloons would maybe take about 2 minutes tops, and it was pretty obvious at this point that this lady was really just being lazy. I apologized and explained that I wasn't aware of their policy, and would remember to call ahead in the future, but asked if she could help me out because I was trying to get them for my coworker whose birthday was that day. She answered me abruptly with a, "Sorry, store policy." I think about it for a second and tell her to hold on for a minute. If I can only get one balloon, I would like to pick a different one. I went back to one of the birthday party aisles and found a package for a full-bodied Mickey Mouse balloon. Now, if you've ever seen one of these full-bodied character balloons, you'll know that it's made up of multiple parts: head, arms, body, legs, feet, etc. that need to be individually blown up and then assembled to create the character. This is then completed with putting weights and rollers on the feet so your balloon can walk. It is technically one balloon though. I went back and handed the package to the lady at the front counter, shrugged and said, "If I only get one balloon, it might as well be a good one." I then proceeded to watch her struggle to figure out how to assemble it for the next 15 to 20 minutes. I can't say I've ever spent $20 on a single balloon before, but it was totally worth it to watch this woman angrily assemble my single balloon. When had she just done what I had originally asked for, I probably would have already been back at my office. I only wish I could have watched her watch me as I left, walking hand in hand out of that door with my freshly created Mickey Mouse balloon. Last one is titled, "I Can't Go Home 5 minutes early, then suffer." This happened a little while after COVID hit and one other coworker, and I got the job of cleaning the grease trap at the second half of our shift. To say the grease trap smelt awful is an understatement. In the time it took us to scoop the gunk out of this giant metal bin with old pickle buckets and walk upstairs and put the back door to throw the slop over the bank, my coworker threw up twice. I was a little smarter and kept my mask on to keep out the worst of it, but was still bad. We finished about 15 to 20 minutes early and we still had to close. Luckily, we had one more coworker dealing with all the foodstuffs. We finished all the non-food stuff, but neither of us felt we could do any more as we smelled like death. So for the last 7 minutes of my shift, since she couldn't think of anything to do, I just stood there, right next to her. She lasted 3 minutes before you could physically see pain from the smell on her face and let us go early. Small victories after a long day are always worth it. P.S. Just for explanation, as I didn't really think of it when posting. Our grease trap, as everyone calls it at work, has bare minimum actual grease in it as it's all runoff from the sink. We have screens in the drains, but stuff like coffee grounds, tiny food scraps, condiments, etc. get in there and it sits. Stuff from the fryer goes straight into a barrel in the back lot for a biodiesel guy, but I'd say about 70 to 80% of what we make are sandwiches. Thanks for listening.